Nō mai, haere mai, welcome. I'm Bruce Munro. With me is International Relations Specialist Professor Robert Patman, and this is Global Insight. Violent and politically charged events continue to unfold in Los Angeles as US President Donald Trump sends in the Marines to quell demonstrations against his crackdown on undocumented migrant workers. Are we witnessing a watershed moment in US history? Welcome, Robert.
Morena, Bruce, thank you.
Since June 6, when all of this began, dozens of people have been arrested for immigration violations, and about 400 have been arrested for protesting, rioting, or breaking last night's curfew. On the other side of the ledger, 4,000 National Guards and about 700 Marines have been sent in by order of the US President. Is Donald Trump's response proportionate?
Well, before we answer that question directly, let's take a step back to last week. The Trump administration launched a series of immigration customs enforcement, ICE as they're called. They basically descended on multiple homes, businesses and neighborhoods in Los Angeles. They arrested, detained, I should say, about 118 people. Now, what caused the controversy was that some of these people were apparently mistreated in their detention, in the way in which they were detained. And also, it is claimed by many lawyers in Los Angeles, ICE officials lacked the judicial warrants. So in other words, due process wasn't observed. This was a high-profile action, and it provoked almost immediate protests. If you go into businesses where many people work and they see one or two people taken out and dragged out in some cases, that can lead to a strong reaction. And so there was protests, and some of it, unfortunately, the protests were violent. And then we had Mr. Trump's response, which, as you said, resulted in the sending in of 4,000 National Guards and also 700 Marines. Now, just to break that down again, under the Constitution, which divides powers between the federal state and local state, it's the power of the governor of the state to call in the National Guard, not the presidency. This is the first time a president of the United States has used the National Guard since 1965, when Lyndon Johnson was president, and that was when the country was gripped by convulsions over civil rights. But it has not been done since, and it was only used, as I understand it then, considerable reluctance. So this has led to a suspicion that it's not about protests or immigrants per se, it's all about Mr. Trump centralizing power. And that's to come back to your question, in the eyes of many politicians in the United States, particularly on the Democratic side, this is not a proportionate response. They would argue that Mr. Trump has provoked a situation by not observing due process in implementing his policies about deporting immigrants, and that has provoked a counter-reaction, and he has responded in turn with, if you like, an over-the-top response by calling in the National Guard. And for many people, it confirms what they already thought, that Mr. Trump has scant regard for the Constitution and due process or the rule of law.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has warned that other states and democracy itself will be Trump's next target. Is he just being overly dramatic to try and increase his chances of becoming the next Democrat presidential candidate?
Well, let's be quite clear. Mr. Newsom has been on the telephone with Mr. Trump, although not as much as Mr. Trump says. Mr. Trump claims they've had several conversations. I think Governor Newsom says there's only one. But Mr. Trump has acted in a most disrespectful way. He's called news scum. He repeatedly refers to the governor as Governor News Scum, while saying, ironically, that he will enforce law and order in Los Angeles, and he would not tolerate disrespect in any shape or form. But in fact, in the same breath, he is setting a very poor example. I suppose the problem here is that Mr. Trump has a track record when it comes to authoritarian tendencies. We've already mentioned the scant regard for the Constitution, but he has threatened judges with impeachment that disagree with him. He is suing media outlets that criticise him. He is withholding funds from universities which teach courses he doesn't like. And so this action is not just about Governor Newsom, if you like, generating a self-serving narrative. Quite independently of Newsom, Mr. Trump has radically changed America. He's been on the road to autocracy since he began his second administration, and through the steps that we've just described.
So I want to pick up on that. There's hundreds of protests across the US are planned for Saturday, coinciding with a military parade to mark the 250th anniversary of the US Army and the President's 79th birthday. What impact do you think this week's events in Los Angeles will have on those protests this weekend?
Well, we're already seeing. I think it was Karen Bass, the mayor, who introduced the curfew in California, saying that the central government, the federal government, had already wrested powers from the Los Angeles authorities, which it had no right to do under the Constitution. And she said, what happens in Los Angeles is a test case for what may happen elsewhere. And what is interesting is that big cities like Chicago and New York are already mobilizing big protests. And I think there will be a weekend of action nationwide in the United States to protest about the usurpation of power by this president, who was only elected by one of the thinnest margins of victory, just under 1%. So what will happen? Many people have criticized this military parade. It's costing $90 million at a time when the government's cutting support for things like Medicare, so, and other services, and so that in itself will be controversial. Mr. Trump has already given a warning. Is there any protests at his military parade? They will be. He said force will be used and it'll be heavy. So he's giving a warning that he doesn't want his occasion of the birthday and the military parade to be spoilt by protesters. But it looks like we're heading for a weekend confrontation, the way things are going. There's a great deal of strength of feeling about this. And I think there's a feeling that Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass have both articulated that what happens in Los Angeles, it's no coincidence that the president has decided to really rigorously enforce his anti-immigration policy, deporting illegal immigrants, starting in Los Angeles. He's sending a message. And so I think other states in the United States have picked up on this. And yeah, we're set for a very troubling situation in the United States. This is a country where there is a large number of arms in private hands in the United States, 340 million private arms in private hands. And that, of course, if there's tension in the society and the society becomes polarized, that could be very explosive.
It's difficult to work out how concerned to be about this whole thing. Is this another storm in the Trump teacup, or is it more akin to the Boston Tea Party?
I do think it's a fork in the road moment for the United States. Mr. Trump hinted, even during the campaign, the election campaign, he made that much quoted statement that if you vote for me, you won't need another election. We have seen, and I don't think many liberal democracies have been quick enough to respond, some disturbing trends towards the autocratic road, or down the autocratic road, since Mr. Trump's been in power. And I don't think one should underestimate his ambitions to concentrate ever greater power. Why do I say that? Look at the people he admires. Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. He has no time for democratic leaders largely. Oh yes, he's polite and he makes the necessary diplomatic noises when called upon. But his vision of the world is very different from New Zealand's. He believes in a world where great powers run the world, and since America is greatest of all, believes that America should be, as he put it, America first. It should be a world which reflects America's interests above all. So we are seeing, I think, domestic policies that mirror to some extent authoritarian trends, both in the domestic sphere and also in the foreign policy sphere. So yeah, I think we should be concerned. None of us know, none of us have, my crystal ball is no better than anyone else's. I do think this is a critical moment in America's political evolution, and let's hope cooler heads prevail at the weekend on both sides of the argument.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for watching. Catch us next time on Global Insight. Ka kite anō.